First of all, I'd like to welcome you to Madeira Island, and to our tour. I would like to introduce you to our driver. His name is Renato, and my name is Darlene. So Renato and I, we're now taking you to a viewpoint which is called Eira do Cerrado. It's at a place that has an altitude of over 1,000 meters. And from there, if it's clear, we will be seeing a little village called Curral das Freiras, which is surrounded by mountains with over 1,400 meters high. And it is the most isolated place on the island, taking into account the population that lives there. And after we see Eira do Cerrado, that looks like an extinct crater of a volcano, but it isn't. It's a big erosion valley. We will then head to our next stop. So afterwards we shall head to Cabo Girão, considered to be one of the highest sea cliffs in the world, with an altitude of 589 meters high. That's the place where you have the skywalk, where you walk over a glass platform and you'll be looking straight down to the ocean. And from Cabo Girão, we eat on the island, which is called espada, black scabbard fish. Looks like an eel, black skin, big eyes, very sharp teeth. So I never recommend anybody to see it before you eat it. But it is a delicious fish. And from there we come back to the ship. We should be back around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So definitely do hope you enjoy these few hours, and during these few hours I'll be telling a little bit about Madeira. Thank you. Obrigada. You know that we say arigato because we Portuguese arrived to Japan in 1543. And we left big influences in Japan. The tempura food, that's Portuguese. And over 400 Japanese words are Portuguese words. So, arigato, obrigado. And that's thank you in English. Well, as I mentioned, we are heading now to Eira do Cerrado. And I would like to tell you a little bit about the archipelago of Madeira. Madeira means wood in English, because this is the name given not only to this island, which is the biggest of all the islands in the archipelago, and there are 8 of them, but it is the name of the archipelago. So the reason for the name, it's because we have here a very dense forest, which is exactly the same forest that over 10,000 years ago covered the center and the south of Europe. But with the very low temperatures of the last glacier age, it was killed and survived in the Canary Islands, Cape Verde Islands, that used to be Portuguese, the Azorean Islands, which are still Portuguese islands, and Madeira. And out of the 4 archipelagos, Madeira has the biggest representation of this flora. And this flora is found on the north and center of Madeira Island, covering today over 20% of Madeira. And it was turned into World's Natural Heritage in December of 1999. So the reason for the name Madeira has to do with the very dense forest that was found here when the island was rediscovered. And the rediscovery of Madeira occurred on the 1st of July of the year 1419 by Portuguese. When the Portuguese came to Madeira, they knew already about its existence. That's why we say that Madeira was rediscovered. Many times tourists ask me, who discovered it? Actually, we don't know exactly who discovered it, because we know that Madeira was shown on Portuguese maps as well as Italian maps during the 14th century. It was also shown on Phoenician maps, Arabs maps, and we have historians who believe that there is a very, very strong possibility that Vikings were here between the 9th and the 10th century. I usually joke and say that there was nothing to steal, so they went away. And the island, when it was rediscovered by Portuguese on the 1st of July 1419, they arrived and found a very dense forest and nobody lived here. In the Canary Islands, you've heard that they found the guanches. There was nobody here. Madeira only had lizards, insects, birds, and bats. That was all. And we began the settlement from the year 1425 on, with innumerable families that came from the north, as well as some from the center and south of mainland Portugal. So when they arrived, they first settled the south of Madeira and then the center and north of the island. Now, Madeira is one of the 8 islands, only 2 islands with conditions to be inhabited, which are Madeira and Porto Santo. And Madeira has 747 square kilometers, and we have a population of 251,000 inhabitants. The other island, which is tiny, is Porto Santo, with 42 square kilometers. Before continuing, on the left side we can see the parish church dedicated to São Martinho, Saint Martin. We will have big celebrations here this week because we had celebrate Saint Martin between the 10th and the 11th of November. It's traditionally the day that we taste the wine that was made in summer, and we accompany with the dry cod, the bacalhau, and sweet chestnuts that are produced in Madeira. Anyway, as I was saying, Madeira, the archipelago, has only 2 islands with water. That's why they're inhabited, Madeira and Porto Santo. Porto Santo, very well known for its 9-kilometer golden sandy beach. And we have the 3 deserted islands, which can be seen from the south of Madeira. Nobody living there, only 3 permanent guards to protect its fauna and flora, especially to protect the monk seals that are known as monacos, that are facing extinction. And they are the rarest seals in the world. And we have the wild islands very close to the Canaries, which are bird sanctuaries, islands where nowadays we have innumerable botanists and scientists who go there on different expeditions. And these islands have a volcanic origin, exactly the same origin of the Canaries, of the Azores, of Hawaii, so originated from a hot spot. And the first islands to be formed were the wild islands, Selvagens, 28 million years ago. Then Porto Santo was formed above sea level 14 million years ago. And Madeira above sea level 7 million years. And the 3 deserted islands 3.6 million years. So we have many volcanic eruptions. The last ones in Madeira occurred between 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. Now, geologists consider this to be too recent, and they don't consider that volcanism is only extinct after 10 to 12,000 years. So our volcanoes are dormant, they're asleep. We obviously hope they never wake up. And it's an island basically formed by lava, tufa, which is red volcanic ash, and basalt. So Madeira itself is the peak of a big mountain with over 5,000 meters that's born on the ocean floor, and above sea level, the highest point of Madeira is Pico Ruivo with 1,862 meters high. We are on our way to Eira do Cerrado, and there is a viewpoint here where you have a wonderful view over the entire city of Funchal, which is the capital of the island. It's not included on our tour, but we will make here a very short stop for photographs. Okay, so it will be just a very short, so please, I do ask you to be back on the time that I give you, so we can, we are able to obviously stop at the different places where we're going and have some decent time here. So here it is. This is the entire city of Funchal. Notice that we have innumerable families living up there above 800 meters high, and this is because of price of property that's very expensive. So here, go straight ahead. Up there where we have the pine trees is where you get the best view. This is one of the places where many people come to watch the fireworks on New Year's Eve. We always have 8 to 10 minutes of fireworks exploding and all over Funchal, so it's quite spectacular. So we'll stop here for 15 minutes photographs and then come back.
Kung gusto ng souvenir yan. Souvenirs. Madeira. Dito tayo. Stop over kami dito, mga 15 minutes lang, and then proceed ulit sa ibang lugar. Ganda!
Do Cerrado. Now, I mentioned that from here we can see the entire city of Funchal. Funchal, the name comes from funcho. Funcho in English is fennel. Fennel is a plant native to the Mediterranean, very similar to anises. And it's a plant that when the Portuguese arrived to Madeira in 1419, they found many of these plants. And they found obviously many other plants, but the other plants they could not recognize. They had never seen them in their lives. So, because they found all these fennel plants, they decided to give a name to this place that was a name from, in this case, fennel. So, fennel, Funcho, Funcho, Funchal. Funchal became a city in 1508. And from 1508 until the year of 1996, it was the only city of Madeira. While in the rest of the island, it's just over 300 inhabitants per square kilometer. And Madeira is an island that's very mountainous. So most of the population is on the south coast where we are. Over 90% of Madeira's population is on the south coast. And the south coast is where we have higher temperatures, where we have less winds and less precipitation, less rain. Because on the north, we are more affected by winds, especially the trade winds. So this explains why the north of Madeira has lower temperatures, higher percentage of humidity. I usually say that the north of Madeira is the capital of nature and the south of Madeira is the capital of economy. And the north and south of Madeira is divided by this big range of mountains we have in front of us, where we have the highest peaks, which I mentioned before. The highest of all is called Pico Ruivo. It's not the highest we can reach by car. The highest we can reach by car is Pico do Arieiro, with 1,818 meters high. And yes, there we also have snow during winter. We do not practice any winter sports, by the way. And that's where we have more rain. On the highest points of Madeira can rain as much as the wettest parts of the Alps. The rate of precipitation up there is over 3,000 millimeters of rain annually. And Funchal, 550 millimeters of rain. So huge contrast. And this explains why most of the population is on the south coast, because of the weather conditions and because of the fact that it's here where most people work, especially in Funchal, and most schools are in Funchal. Now, we are on the only road that connects Madeira to this little village that's called Curral das Freiras. And Curral das Freiras, in English, is the nuns' shelter. Why? Because when Madeira was settled, land was given to families who came from England, Portugal. And apparently, this big erosion valley we're going to see was given to two daughters of the men who rediscovered Madeira, João Gonçalves Arco. And these two ladies, they ended up their lives in a convent called the Convent of Santa Clara in Funchal. And therefore, whenever pirates attacked Madeira, that's where they used to hide. And in Portuguese, nuns, we call freiras. Curral is a sheltered place, and that place is sheltered. It's protected by mountains and gave shelter to nuns. So that's why it's called the nun shelter. It's a place where today we have a population of 2,000 inhabitants, and most of those people work on agriculture, a very high rate of immigration, and obviously some work in Funchal. Until a few years ago, less than 20 years ago, this road where we're now passing was a very narrow road, and to get to the village we had to pass through an extremely narrow road and two old tunnels. So it was very difficult. And the government then opened a tunnel with 2,400 meters to get down to the village. So slowly it started developing. It is the biggest producer of sweet chestnuts of Madeira, and we just celebrated the Sweet Chestnut Festival. We call castanhas in Portuguese. And we make everything you can imagine with sweet chestnuts. We have sweet chestnut cake, we have sweet chestnut pudding, we have sweet chestnut soup, sweet chestnut biscuits, and many things in pastry made with sweet chestnut liqueur, and this year we started seeing sweet chestnut beer, which was apparently they innovated this year with the beer. It's not sold in many places. It's like the banana beer that we will soon start commercializing in Madeira. Oh. And this to say that at the place where we're now stopping, which is Eira do Cerrado, you will see in the cafe they have a big variety of things made with sweet chestnut. Many liqueurs they produce, not only sweet chestnut liqueur, but they produce different liqueurs, and especially one called the sour cherry liqueur. In Portuguese we call ginja. A sour cherry is a fruit extremely similar to our normal cherry. As its name says, it's not very sweet, it's a bit sour, and we always use it for pastry and liqueurs. And in Madeira we have a big tradition of liqueurs for Christmas. Reason: our houses don't have central heating. We never needed it. The temperatures were always mild. And in the coolest days of winter, to warm up, we had liqueurs, because we were always people that were able to get easily sugar, because we produced sugar. easily get alcohol either from sugarcane or from wine, because we produced both in Madeira throughout centuries. Therefore, to make liqueurs, it was cheap. And most people always harvested the fruits when they were in season and put them directly in alcohol, and then they would add the rest of the ingredients. So to have basically for Christmas, so if you go to a Madeiran family's house during Christmas, they will always offer you a glass of liqueur. At the place where we're stopping, as well as the other places, you will notice that in the souvenir shops, they always have liqueurs for sale. They sell Madeira wine, they sell the Madeiran embroideries, which are 100% handmade, and it's art that's passed from one generation to the next. They sell also these cakes that have a round shape. They are flat, very dark, almost black, and they have several fruits on top. Walnuts, raisins, almonds. That is the traditional cake for Christmas. In Portuguese, we call bolo de mel de cana. That's a cake that has sugarcane syrup as the main ingredient. Sugarcane syrup is not molasses, because sugarcane syrup we produce in Madeira, and it's made directly from the juice of sugarcane. And it's got many vitamins, many minerals. So that's the main ingredient, and that's why the cake turns out to be very dark brown, almost black. And the cake has spices, which allows the cake to last for several weeks, sometimes months. And I say sometimes because you must keep the cake in a place where the humidity doesn't change. Otherwise, after obviously several weeks, it will start changing. But it's a cake that can last for a long, long time because of the spices. The spices allow it to last long. So traditionally, we start baking it from now on to consume during Christmas time and throughout the first months of the year. And these cakes you find in all the souvenir shops of Madeira. And we started in the 19th century especially. We started having Portuguese and Madeirans in general going to the Portuguese colonies, and initially to Brazil, to Angola, Mozambique, and Africa. And then by the end of the 19th century, early 20th century, there were thousands who went to some of the Caribbean islands, like Curacao, Aruba, Trinidad, Tobago. We had many who went to Hawaii. Over 2,000 Madeirans went to Hawaii, just as a curiosity. We had so many Madeirans in Hawaii that we ended up influencing their food, and they have some food that's typical, which is of a Madeiran influence, as well as an influence from the Azores, from where many other people went to Hawaii. And by the way, the Hawaiian musical instrument, the ukulele, it's a Madeiran four-string instrument called braguinha. And it's interesting because many of them come back to Madeira, the descendants of Madeirans who went there, and the first thing they want to do is to buy the original ukulele, the braguinha, which is still produced in Funchal. Anyway, throughout the 20th century, many other Madeirans went to innumerable European countries. Most are in the UK, especially in the Channel Islands, as well as in Germany and France. And France, Portugal has over 1 million Portuguese. Also to the Netherlands and to South America. It was especially to Venezuela and also to Brazil. Africa, especially to South Africa. South Africa has more or less the same amount of Madeirans as we have here in Madeira. And Venezuela has more Madeirans than we have here in Madeira. So you can imagine how many people left. So these people who left, when some of them returned, and many of them did return, they invested the money they had earned here. So it was impossible for those who never went away to compete with them. And this is the reason why property started going up. During these last, I would say the last months, it started being worse because in Portugal they've been giving golden visas to foreigners who want to invest. They have huge advantages in terms of taxes. So because we are very, very close to the place where we'll start seeing part of the village of Curral das Freiras. We are now passing along part of the old road. In this area, we will pass through some places where you will see how narrow the road was. And you will start seeing part of that little village. We've got some clouds on the way. We will see if we go further ahead, because we are already at a place with approximately 1,000 meters of altitude. You will notice the difference on the temperatures as soon as we get to Eira do Cerrado. And there we have nowadays a large building, which is the place where we have a large souvenir shop. You have also a cafe and the path to the viewpoint. To get to the viewpoint takes you approximately 7 to 8 minutes, and it's worth it. Yeah, even though I see the clouds here, many times they're here, but they're not covering the area where you can see the village. There it is. We can see part of the valley in front of us. A big erosion valley that took thousands of years for these mountains to be shaped by water from rain, hail, frost, snow, winds, and fires. Eira do Cerrado, 1,094 meters high, over 3,000 feet. A place where we have a path down to the village, and that path was the shortcut where those people used to walk before the road was open. And the road was open only by late 50s. Before that, there was no road. Now it is the continuation of the old road down there. You can hardly see it because of erosion, has been destroyed part of it, and there are 2 tunnels. So that's the road that we no longer use since we have the other tunnel. And here, as I mentioned, we have this path with 1,567 steps to get down to the village. And those are the steps where thousands of people throughout years walked to carry whatever they produced to Funchal to sell in the market of Funchal. Okay, so we're going to leave from here 15 minutes.
Yes, you. Papa. It's about 7-8 minutes from there. Okay. Wenn ihr hier dein Hotel habt, ist halt auch am Haare.
Can you make a picture? Please. No, we will leave with you. Yeah, I know. I should go. The other side. Other side. Yeah. Yes. And I count 1. Picture. Chin.
Yes, yes. Because we just sorry.
You just not even a snack. You like. Jak ją? Czego?
Daming ulap. Ang bangin.
Nie mów, że się nas tak ciekawi, że chcesz tam biec. Masz te drogi, nie?
By the way, the forest we have been passing through is basically formed by the big pine trees that we see here, the Pinus pinaster, as well as the eucalyptus trees, pine, mimosa. Those were all trees that we introduced to Madeira. Most of them during mid-19th century, when we started having big consequences of erosion on the mountains. And this has to do with the fact that Madeira, throughout centuries, we had many sugar mills, because just to give you an idea, between the 15th and 16th century, Madeira was one of the biggest producers in the world of sugar. And during those days, we opened many sugar mills, over 100 sugar mills, and they needed wood to burn in the big ovens of the sugar mills. And they ended up cutting the native trees. But our native trees are very slow-growing trees. And unfortunately, in many places, we started having erosion. So the huge consequences of erosion started occurring by the 19th century, when we had the worst floods in the history of Madeira. Because if it rains a lot on the mountains, and there's no vegetation to stop that water just flowing down to the coast, it ends up destroying whatever it finds on its way. And that's what happened in 1803. And to stop erosion, we introduced fast-growing trees. So all these pines, the mimosa, the eucalyptus, the sweet chestnut trees, oak trees, they were all brought into Madeira. The eucalyptus, as well as mimosa, are invasive trees. They are a big, big problem, because they spread very easily, and they are the cause of the innumerable fires we have had on the mountains of Madeira. grande maioria das pessoas, a gente não liga nenhuma a nada do que fazemos isso.
Oh, não tenho as outras. Isto não é para desfrutar da passeio, não é?
Gostam. Para além de não perceberem o que está a dizer. Nem numa língua, nem na outra.
Yeah. Depois eu tenho papel, depois não há outra.
É o essencial. Eles têm as suas plantas e não prestei atenção que eu estava a falar. Para quê?
Estão arranjando as mãos, estão a fazer a prova das mãos.
Ah,
Isto não, praticamente metade disto não existia.
olha que nunca prestei atenção.
Isto não existia.
Já tinha partido.
Já, muitos, por exemplo, isto não existia, mas ainda tinhas estes cortados.
Não?
Não. Isto é tudo fresco. E depois para cima tinhas era destes separadores de
Sim,
ações, eles
era,
mandaram
sim,
arrancar
era.
e puseram, estão agora aí a fazer mais.
14 to 16 months to grow in fruit. And then farmers have to cut the bunch of bananas and they sell it to the cooperatives where they have to weigh them, they have to wash them, they have to cut them into big hands of bananas to export. And we export to England, Portugal. We produce 22,000 tons of bananas, most of it to export. Obviously, if we compare 22,000 in Madeira to 400,000 in the Canaries, it's nothing. But it's very important for us. And here they are. Look at the bananas here, this truck on the left side. By the way, we're building here University Hospital on your left-hand side. And once the farmer cuts the bunch of bananas, they will need to cut the mother plant because that plant will never again fruit. It can survive for another year or two, but it will not give any more fruits. So generally, next to the trunk of the mother plant, there are always young shoots growing. I usually say that they're the young babies. And they always cut the weakest ones to leave the strongest plant to grow faster and to give another bunch of bananas. So we do not talk about having 1, 2 or 3 harvests of bananas because we have these fruits during all the year round. Obviously more during summer than in winter. In winter many times, and not necessarily in winter, sometimes also in other months, they cover them with blue plastics. The idea of the plastic is to make like a mini greenhouse on the fruits, so they can have more heat and ripen faster. So it accelerates the process and increases the production. We make, we obviously have these fruits to eat as a fruit, and banana nowadays is considered to be a superfruit. A superfood. The nutritionists say that we should all eat at least 1 banana per day. And these are fruits that we export to England, and we know that our organic bananas are being exported outside to European countries, and one of them is to Germany. Down here to the left side is where we have the Madeiran Brewery, and we have the thermoelectric power station, the Madeiran Brewery, where we produce our Coral beer. Coral or Coral is a beer we have been producing since the 19th century in Madeira, and this beer is a beer you find all over Madeira Island for sale. We also produce very good soft drinks. The most well-known is the passion fruit soft drink, the Brisa Maracujá. And there are other flavors of apple and orange. See all the banana plantations around here. Many times you see houses almost hidden by the banana plants.
Isto é que eu trabalho.
É?
Isto é preto daquele.
Não, não foi.
Pá, não, nessa sei se vale a pena arranjar.
I don't know.
Pois já temos novos. As fez a frente toda. Ja. Depois descemos do outro lado. E para trás não tem o ar-condicionado ligado?
Não?
Não, é só ventilação.
Ah, mas já não.
Tenho ligado o ar-condicionado só à frente. Mas hoje tem que cá mais uma coisinha. Anda para aqui depois do.
Olha, o que é que achas que vou aqui?
Este aqui.
Já tive a minha dose. Já tive a minha dose desse.
Ainda tenho a opção de conduzir aí atrás, tenho que ver aqui.
Só comprou remoto.
Para aqueles dias de calor.
And we're going to head now all the way up to reach Campo Giro. And on the way up, we'll start getting some magnificent views of Câmara de Lobos.
Câmara de Lobos.
E daqui também está ali. The biggest treasure of humankind, which is water. And Madeira has millions of springs. So Madeira has a lot of water, especially on the north and center. And because we have 4 seasons, in summer it doesn't rain enough for irrigation, and we need to bring the excess of water to the south. By the way, the plants you see here on your right and left with the long leaves is sugarcane. This is sugarcane on your right and on your left. And these are plants that by the month of March, we cut the plant, we obviously cut the leaves, and it's taken to the sugar mills to produce the sugarcane syrup as well as the white rum and dark rum. Anyway, as I was saying, the water, we have a rainy season which begins during the month of October to finish during the month of April, end of April. It doesn't mean that during the other months it doesn't rain. It does rain, but not enough for irrigation. So during summer, we had to have water to take to these little terraces. Look at all the terraces. So the solution was to open what we call levadas. The name comes from the word levar, which means to carry. So they are open water channels that carry water from our springs, from the mountains, to these little terraces. Today, Madeira has over 3,000 kilometers of levadas. I consider them to be the veins, the arteries of Madeira. And that water is the excess we have on the north and center that's brought to the south. 589 meters high. This one I definitely recommend you to go all the way down to the viewpoint where you have a spectacular view over Câmara de Lobos and Funchal.
Raket.
scary. Doesn't look scary. Scary.
Madeira. We have two very important fishing ports, Câmara de Lobos, and on the other side of the island, closer to where we have the airport, because we have an intercontinental airport, is where we have the other fishing port called Mexico, and also the area of Canisal. And in Madeira, we catch around 8,000 tons of fish every year, 5,000 of tuna on the eastern side of Madeira, and we consume a lot of tuna, especially between spring and summer. And also espado black scabbard fish, which is that ugly fish I mentioned this morning that we catch in this fishing port we're going to stop now, Câmara de Lobos. Then the other fish we catch are fish that in general live very deep in the ocean, because Madeira, for being the peak of a big mountain, hardly has continental platform. So we don't have much continental platform. As soon as fishermen start getting away from the coast, it's very deep. And it is between 800 and 1600 meters below sea level where they catch that fish, with long lines that have several hooks, and those lines remain down there for 10 to 12 hours before they bring them up to the surface. So the fish is already dead when it reaches the surface. And if you have the opportunity, next time you come to Madeira, try to have this fish in one of the local restaurants of Madeira. Frequently, it's served with banana. Fish with banana, yes, it's a very, very good combination to have fish, this black scabbard fish with banana or with fresh passion fruit juice. So very common to find in many of our local restaurants in Funchal. We catch, as I mentioned, other fish. Many times guests ask me about sardines. Yes, we have sardines in the waters of Madeira, but our sardines are not very tasty, very good. So we import sardines. And generally at the time of the year that in mainland Portugal they consume sardines, we consume tuna in Madeira. And what concerns shellfish, most of the shellfish we have, we import from different countries in the world, because Madeira doesn't really have much shellfish. Madeira has limpets that we generally have as a starter in most of our fish restaurants. Madeira is an island where fairly recently we started having fish farms along the south coast. Notice how calm the sea is. So for being very calm on this side of the island is where we generally have these huge rings in the ocean for gilt-head bream, which is a fish that has a silver to grey color that we find in supermarkets for sale. It's one of the bream. And those fish we have in the fish farms. We are the biggest producers of this fish, which we call dourada in Portuguese, of Portugal. We catch around 1,200 tons every year. Over 50% of the world's fish today comes from fish farms.
Mas é como eu já sei como é que ela gosta. Eu já apanhei ela logo de manhã, na farinha, assim, para tesoura o dia inteiro, para os outros que fomos em preto, eu ia da sua.
Olha, o Rui Costa ali. O Costa me via. Trabalha com o tráfico, desde nunca mais trabalhei.
Esquece. Onde já se via isso?
Não, os vão ver.
Esquece.
Agora já nem.
a gente às vezes tem uma coisa, não sei se você anda aqui da merda. Está aqui. E eu vejo, você não consegue ter uma conversa, você tem que ter pensar ideias. E depois uma pessoa, se for para ficar um caótico, eu não posso fazer. Hoje vai ser os segundos. E fico parado. Olha, eu gosto do escuro.
Oh, não digas que isto ainda é de uma dia.
Mas a gente consegue.
Caramba. Sim, tinha acabado de acontecer.
Mas não tem assim muito tempo e estás a ver. As pessoas, quando há um acidente, toda a gente tem que ir lá no pedaço.
We're going to stop at the viewport that we have just in front of us. That's Pico da Torre. And from there you will see perfectly the very small fishing port of Câmara de Lobos, with its small and very colorful fishing boats, and also part of Funchal, and all the area of Câmara de Lobos. Câmara de Lobos has a population of less than 35,000 inhabitants, where the economy relies on agriculture and fishing. The economy of Madeira relies basically on services. 27% of Madeira's population, of Madeira's economy, relies on tourism. So most of the population is somehow connected to tourism. And we have around 25,000 people working for the government. So there are very few small industries, including some food industries in Madeira. And Madeira has a very small free tax area on the eastern side of Madeira, which is the only one in the country. And actually the economy relies on the services and the annual funds we get from mainland Portugal, because Madeira is an autonomous region since 1976. That's when Madeira, under the Portuguese constitution, gained the right of self-determination. We have our own president and our own assembly, which is the Madeiran parliament, and we have autonomy on administration, political, but not financial. Madeira is an island that receives annual funds from mainland Portugal. And the development of Madeira began especially after we joined the European Union, when in the year 1986 was when Portugal joined the European Union, and we were considered to be among the poorest regions of Europe, and the funds that were sent to Madeira were used specially for the construction of these new infrastructures to approach the cosmopolitan area of Funchal to the rural area of Madeira. So to approach these little villages to the capital of the island, and we built many new roads, many new tunnels, and obviously bridges. And that was a time when we also extended the runway of the airport, which half of it is over the ocean. So have now your cameras handy. We're very, very close to Pico da Torre.
A gente depois vai por baixo e sobe para entrar na via rápida, ou faz zona hoteleira, conforme a hora.
Tens que dizer isso já, é isso?
Normal.
Bem,
Não
que
vou
nem
dizer
sei
isso.
se eles vão se perder em Câmara de
Pois
Lobos,
é.
não.
Mãe, o que é que faz esta parede aqui
Mas
solitária?
tem aqui, eu vou fazer aqui um bloco de apartamento, uma coisa assim do género.
Aqui!
Está bem, projeto.
Okay, so we're going to stop here just for photographs.
Só porque está nesse lugar,
E lá?
estou a ver aí,
Ah,
peraí. Faço deixa por aqui. Eu já estou a fazer isto novo, já vi que isso mais atrás. Não, depois subimos por aqui. Vamos descer para aqui, sabes?
Nós descemos atrás.
Pode ser de marcha atrás.
Okay, so here we are. Just photographs, please.